All right, guys, what's up? This is Johnny. It is 6 a.m. here, Saturday morning. There's a lot of fights coming up. There's fights starting in a few hours. To all you Americans, I say welcome to the channel. To everybody else tuning in throughout the world, I know a lot of my subscribers come from the Philippines, the UK, Australia. I say welcome. Whenever you get this, whether it's on this live stream or if you catch it on our podcast playlist, the Johnny Says Boxing Daily Podcast, let me know in the comment section below who you like, who your locks are. I've given you mine. Right now, if you haven't gone there yet, on my channel, if you guys are unfamiliar how to navigate the YouTube interface, go on my channel. You'll see videos, playlists, shorts, lives, and then you'll see the section that says posts. I've given you 2 of my parlays so far for today and tomorrow. I answered your questions who fans are into UFC and MMA. I gave you my 3-leg parlay. Those odds pay about 5 to 1. I also gave you an 11-legger for boxing, and those fights start today. In this video, we're going to go over that. We're going to go over all your questions. There's some last-minute picks that I'm going to go with. There's some prop bets that I'm going to run by you. You guys don't have to tell me on this, but I will let you know that I do have a couple dollars sprinkled on it. There's a lot of stuff going on in boxing every Saturday morning, every fight week. It's part of the international boxing media's job. Even if you don't have a fighter, if you're a promoter, if you don't have a fighter who's fighting anytime soon, everybody knows that all the eyes internationally are on the weekend's fight cards. So this weekend we have the fight card. It's LA fights. It's in Long Beach at Thunder Studios. Some interesting matchups on that fight card. And because all week we were focused so much on Tokyo with Brian Norman Jr. and Jin Sasaki, some people kind of overlooked that fight, Stevens and the Stevens fight. And those odds are nice. We could go over that if you want. I got some action on that fight. David Stevens versus Kamakov. And also, if you read the title of this, we could talk about Galal Yafai. That's an intriguing fight, guys. That fight, I feel, internationally is flying under the radar. I broke the Galal Yafai Francisco Rodriguez Jr. prediction video down. If you haven't seen it yet, it's in my playlist section called Fight Predictions. That's the uninterrupted content that I create where it's my analysis, breakdown, and prediction. And everyone's checking in. I salute you guys. I'll start taking your questions in about a couple minutes. Let people fill in. I just want to run down a few things before we get into this. Like I said, the David Stevens fight versus Kamakov, that's an interesting matchup. We have also the headliner in Jersey between Brooklyn versus Baltimore. No one's really talking about that fight on an international level. I haven't seen any UK boxing content creators talking about it. I don't even know many in Australia. I know I'm not the only one in Australia, but I might be the only Australian boxing content creator who was born and raised in America. So maybe that's a point of difference for me when talking about the American fights, the non-world title fights, I mean. So I'm talking about, obviously, Jahai Tucker and Truck Simpson. There's value and money to be made on that fight. And I know a lot of my followers on this live stream are boxing bettors. So the true blue boxing heads will have money on that. If you want to talk about that, we can. Thank you, DJ. And we'll do our check-ins now. More of the Prince locks. Yafai money line, Tucker decision, Walker money line, McGrill by decision. What's that pay more? DJ's in the house. Whenever I'm in America, I'm invited. I'm coming too. If I come, we could talk about that for sure. And if you guys ever come down to Sydney, hit me up. And also looking ahead, because we always talk about one of my phrases on my channel, both when I'm breaking down and predicting fighters and when we're gambling, whether we win or lose, is what have you done for me lately? So looking ahead, we got midweek fights coming up. No one's talking about in Australia. So we win a lot of money on these Aussie fights. We got Liam Wilson and Liam Perro both fighting in Australia on Wednesday. So keep that in mind. Swindle under knockdown on Jahai fight. Good. I think so. And let's start there. So Swindle, the knockdown prop bet on Jahai Tucker and Truck Simpson. I actually like the under knockdown prop bet almost equally as I like the fight going the distance. And I mean, I'm not blowing anybody away And I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know by saying, oh, I think Tucker and Simpson go the distance. I think a lot of the pundits are seeing it that way, considering both of their styles. Neither guy has one punch knockout power. And they kind of operate in the ring, still trying to not necessarily hurt their opponents, but win rounds. If anything, it's Simpson's style. When he's cooking, he's marauding forward, that southpaw style. If you like the knockdown or if you like the fight to end in the stoppage, I could see Simpson doing that more, considering his style. A little bit better of a body puncher, pressure forward style. He does his best work when he pushes his opponents up against the ring. Now, obviously, in my prediction video, I got Jahai Tucker winning that fight. I like Tucker on decision, but if you could get a parlay, Tucker, the over, and maybe add a knockdown. So going heavy on, and guys, sometimes I go heavy on. The last few times I've won a lot of money, the odds haven't been too crazy, so it's kind of been safe bets, right? And it's always when we, I wish I would have went super heavy on the Brian Norman Jr. fight to end the parlay we just hit, the under 5.5, Sasaki to be knocked down. It's always the ones we win when we're like, damn, I should have went heavier. I should have put more. It's always the ones we win. And that's kind of the balancing act we have to play as bettors of when to pull the trigger heavy and when to kind of just keep the money coming in, when to keep it consistent so we're constantly in that mental state of winning. So with that being said, some of the guys I talk to and reach out to, they like the knockdown prop bet on Galal Yafai versus Francisco Rodriguez Jr. So we could have a look at that one real quick and see what those odds are paying. Now, I think, I have a sneaky parlay where it will win me the most money. But in terms of, I know we all should have put more money, and we called it. We saw it coming. So I have on a sneaky parlay. I have David Stevens over Peter Kamakov. We know Kamakov, great Russian amateur. Stevens, a lot of power. The Reading, Pennsylvania product. Kamakov hasn't been that active, hasn't really gotten that many fights. He's recently signed with a new boxing promoter, and a lot of people are high on the Russian. I like David Stevens. I like David Stevens' work, and I'm leaning on him. So on a parlay in terms of risk versus reward, this is my riskiest parlay in terms of going heavy but getting the most back. And I don't mind what I'm going to, if it doesn't come through, like last week, guys, if you looked at the odds, we really didn't have two or three fights to put on a parlay last week with like decent odds. A lot of the fights were like $7s, $8s. So that being said, last night I got David Stevens at $1.78. He's now at $1.55. So if you like him, I would take him. I like Stevens on the money line. I like Kona Walker on the money line. And then a knockdown over at least one knockdown on the Galal Yafai fight. So on one separate ticket, I have Galal Yafai on the money line to beat Francisco Rodriguez. And on the ticket I just said, I have Stevens to win, Kona Walker to win, and there to be at least one knockdown on Yafai versus Rodriguez. So that's the one that will bring me back the most money, considering I bet a little heavier on it, to answer your question, Swindle. And I know some questions were coming in. I'm doing my best moving forward with all these live streams to kind of stay focused with a question at a time. And I know somebody just had something up. So if you want me to answer it, or if I didn't get to it, just ask it again. Also, guys, I'm going to be going live for at least my goal this morning was to do an hour. I have to leave here at 7 a.m. to go box. So I have sparring at 8 a.m. and then I have sparring at 8:45. The sparring at 8 a.m. is more about, just doing some cardio pad work, a little bit of skill set stuff, but I'll get probably 3 rounds in there, 3 minutes. And then the 8:45, I'm doing 5 3-minutes. So I'm going to do about 8 rounds today, 8 3-minute rounds with some old timers down in the city. So I do this every Saturday morning. Let's go Rodriguez by late K. Jitterbug. I could see that. So if you do like Rodriguez by late knockout, like 9-12, considering his style, or if you're torn on that, if you like the odds on Rodriguez by knockout, take it. If you're torn on the knockout producing, then you could go the knockdown prop bet. Okay, Jitterbug. So it's really tough. It's a tough fight to call. I know some of you guys were in my comment section. Who watched my Galal Yafai breakdown, the produced one, and then watched my live stream. And a couple guys were talking trash about how I was flip-flopping. Now, I never flip-flopped on my pick. I've always said Yafai was going to win. What I have been, if you want to call it flip-flopping, I've been authentic with my approach. I went from saying, I think this is going to be a really tough fight, to saying, I think Galal Yafai will struggle early, but then handle him late. I don't think that's flip-flopping. I think that's me being the fair boxing guy I am, seeing a path to victory for both guys, whichever way you look at it. It's hard to look past Rodriguez's experience and what he's looked like in past fights against really high-level guys. And it's also hard to look past Galal Yafai's trajectory and what he brings to the table. And what so much on the line with, a fight with Karaji, pretty much, for the winner. And, if... It's weird in boxing, man. The boxing global community, like I said, I brought this up yesterday on the live stream on the second one. I just watched 2 more videos on, the Brits doing their breakdown on Yafai versus Rodriguez. And all the Brits, I think 8 out of 9 Brit commentators are picking Rodriguez. So I don't know if that's kind of like the same thing I saw with some of the Americans. I know Showbiz picked Sasaki to beat Norman Jr., and there were some other Americans for Norman Jr. to lose. So I don't know if that's sort of just our human nature to be contrarians. It's a UK curse for Mexicans. And people were talking about that UK curse. Who did Josh Warrington? Remember that Josh Warrington fight against, was it Mauricio Lara? And then I think Lara popped didn't he pop for PEDs? Maybe not during that fight or shortly thereafter. But either way, Warrington definitely looked past Lara, and Lara came in and starched him. I was shocked. I watched that fight live. I think that's just one on the top of my memory, but we've seen it before. Oh yeah, don't get me started on those British refs stopping after one punch, aka Fabio Wardley, Justice Uni. So guys, wherever you're tuning in, welcome to the live stream. I'm going to go live again later on today, wherever you guys are. Like this video. They just did that Ring Magazine press conference and stare down with Bud Crawford and Canelo Alvarez. We could talk about that. I watched that. News is breaking that Josh Kelly might be fighting Bakra Murtazayev on that card. I think you just have to eye the sport. I like Showbiz and Sean, but they always get the picks so wrong. Yeah, I don't know who Sean Zittle is, and I just learned about Showbiz from you guys a month ago. I think sometimes, and they probably both have, I took your USB, I appreciate your predictions. Appreciate you, Jitterbug. I think sometimes, I don't know who Sean is, and like I said, I just heard about Showbiz maybe in the last 6 months. I think and they probably have bigger followings than me. I think sometimes guys who have big followings, maybe they could get caught up in, being controversial, doing anything for clicks, rage bait, whatever the young kids call it. It's the one promise I always say to you guys, and follow my channel since I started, since it's grown. I'll never do that. I'm coming at it from a teacher-student perspective. We're out here trying to make money. We're out here trying to learn the sport. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to pick a guy just because he's a big underdog or he's an unpopular guy just to say it. Like, I take this shit serious. I said it when we lost the Christian Araneta fight. I mean, I might pick domestic fights on a parlay and not tell you guys about it, but I'm done picking domestic level fights and telling you guys because it's not the risk isn't worth the reward, and I don't think it's ethical, and I hate losing. I take it personal. Cue the Michael Jordan meme. I take it personal. I'm not lying. I brought it up the other day. You know what I'm saying? I was at Thursday night, so when those Tokyo fights were happening, I was at dinner with my girlfriend, and she knows what I do. She respects the game, and she's successful in what she does. So she respects what I do. And she saw it on my face when I saw that Araneta lost. She was like, "What's wrong?" I go, "We lost." She's like, "Oh, it's okay." She's like, "Don't." And she's like, "You can't get them all right." And I'm like, "Dude, it's not that. I don't care if I lost." I was like, people listened to me and they lost. I was like, I don't like losing. So I take it very seriously. So when Norman Jr. redeemed my picks, I was really happy. So going into this weekend, just to put an exclamation point on that thought, yeah, the Galal Yafai fight is it's a 50-50 fight. I don't think anybody out there who's predicting a winner is super comfortable with it. I got to say the same thing about Tucker and Truck. I like Truck Simpson. Just because I picked Tucker doesn't mean I'm a hater on Truck. Watch the breakdown. I wasn't talking anything negative. I said both guys are still developing. Neither one's a finished product. One's 25, one's 22. I think it's a great fight, and I think that it's not getting enough publicity. Now, maybe that's because neither guy is a knockout artist. Neither guy is going to, jump off the page. Let's get paid. High Interest. Thank you for the tip, brother. Shout out to High Interest, always supporting the channel. Let's get paid. Let's do that. Norman by knockout was the easiest. Jitter, right? We've been saying that the whole time. I'll put my money on Rodriguez's decision. And Julio Wango, just because we're opposite, I see why. That's a smart bet. And the odds, when you look at Francisco Rodriguez Jr.'s resume, what he's done, what other great fighters have failed to do against him. When you look at the odds, what is Rodriguez Jr. on decision? And you look what that's paying, I get it. Yeah, DJ. And you know what, mate? On that point, DJ, when you look at the comments on my channel, it's always filled with people who know what they're talking about in a healthy conversation. And that's what we're creating here. And if somebody does come out of pocket or out of line with some troll stuff, or even like an outrageous hot take, people will jump in and just educate them and be like, yo, I don't know where you're coming from. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, for instance, I'd like your guys' opinion. And I understand if you don't agree with this. But on our post section, I posted the picture of Turkey, Canelo, Bud sharing a meal, eating dinner, because that was 2 days ago, and we know that they did their face-off press tour in Riyadh this morning. And a couple guys were like, "Oh, that's it. It's scripted. I don't like it. It's bad optics for them to be eating together. I don't like this. They should be hating each other." And I had to remind a couple people. I was like, "You guys need to read, The Art of War or the Book of Five Rings by Musashi and learn about ancient warfare." It was a custom in warfare battle going back to the gladiators for future opponents to sit, whether they were future opposite sides of the battle or even one-on-one opponents, for you to share a meal together. And, you do that as a show of, revelry for not only your future opponent, but for the act of war, the act of bloodshed. So I actually liked it. I thought it was primal to see those guys eating dinner. I don't mind it. Yafai throws a lot, so he can swing his way for short. I know. You know what? The thing about Yafai and Rodriguez is we're going to see, even though both guys are the same age, if Yafai's ready for that. Yeah, I agree. I got to be honest too on we'll see if Yafai's ready. I want to comment on the Crawford Canelo. If you watched the face-off just now, I just had it on my TV before I went live. Dude, Canelo is bigger than him. And obviously they're not, it's not the weigh-in, but they're doing face-to-faces, right? And I screenshot these pictures, so I'm going to put it up after. So you look at them face-to-face, you look at them side by side, and then there's a perspective of just Bud's face and Canelo's face. And what I noticed that I didn't see before is Canelo has such a thicker head. His head is thicker and his neck is thicker. And, we know that Canelo's a bigger dude, a thicker dude. That being said, man, Crawford's going to have to use his speed and timing to hurt the body first. Love and respect Crawford, but some fight skill doesn't win. Exactly. I know, much thicker. And guys, this is why this is a tough one to call. This is for the non-fanboys out there. Bud has his fanboys, Canelo has his fanboys. Bud has his fans who admire his career, like me. Canelo has his fans who admire his career, like me. Any boxing head of the sport will admire their careers. Julius Armstrong, I'll get to your question in a second. I want to put an exclamation point on Canelo versus Bud. So my point is, when you have a guy who's coming up those weight classes, like Crawford, and he's done it kind of methodically, but he hasn't done it, we know, in the most active way. 47 EJ, one fight at 54 Madrimov, no fights at 60, straight to 68. And we see the long career of Canelo. It's not like Canelo is a bigger weight class guy who is like a mid-level guy. When you mix in that Canelo is a bigger guy and he's a Hall of Famer, that is the thing. So the game plan for Bud is obviously not going to be going in there and knocking Canelo out. The game plan has to be winning rounds and outboxing him. That's going to be the narrative. And the closer we get to September, we'll break it down more and more. To answer your question about Stevens versus Kamakov. So somebody asked me about Stevens versus Kamakov. That is the main event going on in a couple hours in California. David Stevens versus Peter Kamakov. Kamakov is the Russian, undefeated. Hasn't been the most active guy. Struggling to find fights. I think he's fought only a handful of times since 2021. And Steven, good amateur career. Those Russians, a lot of them have come from an amateur story background. I know he just signed to a new promoter. He's in his early to mid-30s, I think, trying to be more active, trying to work towards a world title. I think the management company who manages Alexander Vozdik, I think they just picked up Kamakov. So they've seen Kamakov an opportunity to get big fights. Stevens is a good fighter. Don't look at, him having a couple losses and thinking that he's a wash. He's from Reading, Pennsylvania. He's a good puncher. It's the resume. I have Stevens. If I would have taken Stevens last night, the money would have been $1.78. He's dropped to $1.55, so a lot of money is coming in. I don't know if a lot of that has to do with some of the sports books internationally just offered that fight, but I could see a knockdown in that fight too. Yeah, Stevens did, and I brought this up. That Beck the Bull, he lost a split to Beck the Bully. All right, here, this is where we turn into the Wild West. Jitterbug, yo, who you got? Tevin Farmer or Schofield? This should be interesting. I can't wait to break that fight down. Jitterbug, off the top, I like Tevin Farmer. I think Tevin Farmer still has it. I think Tevin Farmer is world class. I think Tevin Farmer is a couple close decisions away from having a whole entirely different narrative for his career. I look at Tevin Farmer's resume in terms of win-losses akin to Sandor Martin, meaning that guys have fought at the highest level, guys who sometimes fights by the judges don't go their way. But Tevin Farmer, mate, he's world class. He's very skilled. Is Floyd ready for that? This will be by far Floyd Schofield's biggest step up. I know a lot of people are high on Schofield, but I wonder, is that because of Schofield's, what he looks like, physicality, who's been promoting him? I mean, look at activity even in the last 12 months. The most important thing for boxers who are hungry for world titles is staying active. I'm not talking guys like Bud who've been 4 divisional world champions, because he's never been the most active guy when you look at it. And he said that was built by design. Early on he was. But when you get to like a certain stage in your maturation and you're done fighting, number one contender fights, and you're that guy and you only want world title, that's different. This Farmer still feels slated. Farmer still feels disrespected. I like Tevin Farmer to beat Schofield. So that's not my official prediction. That's to answer your question. And somebody asked about Rafael Fiziev versus Baha Mendez, which is a UFC fight going on this weekend. It's an interesting matchup between two strikers. I'll answer that real quick and I'll get back to boxing. We kind of float back and forth. I have Rafael Fiziev. Even though he hasn't had a victory in a few years, when you look at his losses, 2 decision losses to Justin Gaethje, that's no shame. And then he got hurt against Gamrot. Baha Mendez, tall, fun guy, South American guy. I think he trains in Chicago. Bilal Muhammad had brought him up, so he comes from a good camp. Striker, long, keeps his chin in the air. I just think the athleticism and the power and explosion, especially you mix that with Fiziev's background at Tiger Muay Thai, historically the place to learn how to kick, how to punch, how to throw elbows in the MMA game. I like Fiziev in that one. To answer your question. And I saw somebody ask about Truck versus Jahai. I saw it fly by. I did break that video down. It's on my playlist if you want to see the analysis and prediction. I have Jahai Tucker beating Truck by decision, and I have him on a prop bet as well. I like, on a prop bet, I don't see the Tucker Simpson fight going. Okay, you think Tucker stops him? I mean, both guys are tough, and neither I wouldn't say neither guy has one punch knockout power. You think Tucker's just gonna? Then you think Tucker's gonna over sort of drown him then, put him in bad positions and force him to, because Simpson doesn't throw a lot. He doesn't have a lot of volume, and he doesn't really have. He doesn't like fighting in moments where the fight's not taking place on his clock. Some guys could fight well off the back foot if they're front foot fighters. Some guys can't. Some guys could fight through the adversity if the fight's not going their way. Some guys can't. Everything I've seen with Simpson, when you put him on his back foot, and he kind of goes through these laws of not throwing punches. When he's at his best, he's working the body, he's walking you down, he's putting you against the ropes. But I think Tucker, his movement, how he operates in the ring, very unorthodox. He does a lot of fun things in there. You'll watch if you've never seen Jahai Tucker fight. He'll remind you of a few other fighters. He does some movement patterns in there, like Emmanuel Augustus. Some things he does kind of looks like will remind you of Jaron Ennis. But just in terms of defensively, how he switches his guard, he's a fun guy to watch. Only Simpson could get that one-shot knockout if he gets lucky. Yeah, I think Jahai's been a pro since he's 17. Top Rank signed him as a 17-year-old. They have matched him against some really tough opponents. I think he was 19 or 20 when they matched him up with Nicholas Flav, which is a really tough fight, really tough matchup. He was 19 or 20. And so that's his one loss. He has one draw. I think at 22 years old, like I always said, he's still developing, and Truck's still developing. Truck, one of his losses are that overtime boxing. It went 8 rounds. They called it a draw, and they had to fight that 9th round. Psychologically, man, that would be a tough thing to do. That's one of his losses. So, yeah, I think both guys, we still haven't seen their best. Simpson would probably be the guy who's more close to his physical prime. I also think Truck Simpson, this is one of the things with Truck, in my opinion. I don't see him adding too much to his game that he already has, that he's already shown. Yeah, the gas tank. And he is floating kind of back and forth from divisions as well. He's fought past 160 before. He's still trying to figure out where his body feels good at, what division he feels good at. But in terms of his arsenal, his tool belt, what comes out of his offensive bag, I don't think there's too much that he's going to develop that we haven't seen. With Jahai, I think there is. I think he's more diverse with what he does in the ring, and I don't think. Yeah, I said that before, and I was cautious with comparing Truck to EJ just based off of what they've done in their career, comparable to what age EJ was when he won world titles, where with Truck's development. So I wasn't trying to put unwanted comparisons or unfair comparisons on him. But when you look at the body type, the southpaw, jab heavy, walk you down, the body work, yeah, I definitely could see the comparison. Yafai, Vito knockout, Walsh, Elliott knockout points, Sadikov knockout should be added to all parlays. Yeah, Pudgeons, they're not letting me take the Vito knockout. The bad side about the book that I use in Australia is that on a lot of these fights where the odds are so wide, they only force the money line. The Sadikov knockout, we're talking about the UFC here now. I like the Welsh gangster. I'm doubtful that Spence fights against Sting. Yeah, I don't think he will, guys. I mean, for a while, I thought EJ would be fighting. And then for, more recently, I'd agree with you, Brandon, and couldn't see a path for him to come back based off of, what he shows on his social media. But then I think the end of May, early June, so this would have been 2-3 weeks ago, Errol posted this 7-picture slide. So if you go to Errol's Instagram right now, I think it was either May 30th or June 1, he posted this 7-picture slide, and in typical Errol Spence fashion since he lost to Bud, because before he lost to Bud, it was all boxing. But that timeline's correlated with now he has some young kids. It's all family stuff, right? On that 7-picture slide, it's family, 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 family. But on the 7th slide, it's him with an 8-pack. And it's a picture like this. And he's at a track. And I think there's a comment that says, he was referring to that, like, he didn't say this, but he was inferring that just because the world, you don't tell the world, doesn't mean that it's not happening. So that kind of made me think like, oh, maybe he is training some sort of tune-up fight. He says never takes a tune-up, but I think he'll need, yeah, Brandon. Of course, he'd definitely have to take a tune-up. And there's some tune-ups out there, and we haven't seen him at 54. And this is just the selfish boxing fan in me. I'd like to see what he looks like at 54. I think a lot of people would like to see what he looks like at 54. Maybe a renaissance, late career renaissance. I think that's what a lot of the boxing romantics would like to see, because his fan base is a big fan base, and for him to go out the way he went out, I think a lot of his fans would like to see him fight again. Goat, what's up? Thanks for the check-in. What you missed, we're halfway through. We're 30 minutes in. We talked about Galal Yafai fight. We talked about the Tucker versus Simpson fight. We got some UFC sprinkled in there. And now we're talking about Errol Spence Jr. fighting again. Yeah, I'd like to see him, Brandon. And there are some potential matchups at 54. I mean, let's just, game theory real quick. Let's say Tim Tszyu gets starched. Let's say Seb Fundora starches Tim Tszyu. I bet you Errol would put his hand up to fight Tim, and that fight would sell. It would sell based off of everything that could have been a few years earlier. Yeah, go just stay on the live. I always put the live streams up on the podcast playlist, so you'll see it on my channel if you want to stick here. We talked about some knockdown prop parlays. I got Muscles. Muscles hit me up this morning. He likes the over 1.5 knockdowns for the Galal Yafai fight. I could see it happening. Both guys hitting the canvas, popping back up. And that's something he's going heavy on, something for you guys to think about. I like Truck Simpson versus Jahai to go the distance. Just a few of the prop bets. But yeah, Errol, there are matches. Like I said, the selfish fan in me, I'd like to see him at least once at 54. There are rumors going around about the fight's close to be announced. Josh Kelly versus Bakr Murzailov at 54 on the undercard of Canelo Crawford. EJ's always train, never talk. That's why he didn't take tune-ups. Yep. It is paying good, Goat. And if you're in contact with Muscles, you can hit him up. If not, yeah, I woke up to that text message. Because it's 6:30 a.m. Saturday, my time right now. And, I'm up at 5 a.m. every day. Spence versus Thurman. Swindle, I'd like to see that, but just based off of Thurman having that fight against Brock down here in Australia, and I know Brock is a fringe domestic guy. We've watched Brock, Liam Perro knocked him out. Thurman was way classes above. Based on just Thurman, what he looked like, I wouldn't want to put EJ right in there with Thurman right now. I think Thurman doesn't get the credit he deserves. Keith Thurman is still a world-class fighter. I don't think, it's a shame he hasn't been as more active, but I don't think from the average boxing fan, he gets the credit he deserves. That dude could box. And it wasn't that long ago where people were talking about him in a different sort of light. So I wouldn't want to see EJ's first fight against Thurman at 54. I was thinking more, like I said, I wouldn't mind the Tim Tszyu fight. Even if Tszyu beats, I think the Tim Tszyu matchup would bode well with for Errol. Yeah, Thurman's an animal, dude. I have the over on Yafai versus Rodriguez. I like that. Yafai has never fought a caliber fighter. Rodriguez, Yafai has to be every two. Tomas, Yafai has never fought a caliber. Yeah, I mean, yeah, people are really undermining that Sonny Edwards win, right? And if you want to compare a guy like Rodriguez, world champion in different weight classes, and then you like who Rodriguez lost to, close fights, Ioka, Nakatani, got stopped against Chocolatito years ago. And sometimes in a guy's career, the guys they lost to and how because he fought really well in all those fights. I see where you're coming from. Hard for me to take this. I know. And that's kind of just, you kind of got to feel for Galal. But that being said, Galal, I just watched an interview, Galal on The Ring magazine. He was talking about this. And people were saying he's looking past Rodriguez to the Karaji fight. and people were saying that they're down playing the Sonny Edwards win because of where Edwards was mentally, specifically the damage he took against Bam, and then him literally telling his corner he didn't want to be there. But all Galal could do is do what he has to do, and that's win. Doesn't have power either. Yeah, no, it's an interesting fight. It's an interesting fight. We'll see. Over 45 pro fights for Rodriguez versus this will be Galal Yafai's 10th pro fight. Something to think about. And that narrative, you could lean either way on that. One would say, well, Rodriguez has a lot of tread on the tires. The other could say, well, like you said, Yafai, this is his biggest step up. So we'll see. That's why it's so intriguing. I like the matchmaking. Eddie Hearn, Eddie must have seen something, or he must know something. Guys, also, I didn't get an answer to this. Francisco Rodriguez Jr.'s last fight was in Texas. It was an 8-rounder. He won the fight. Then they overruled it to a no decision, no contest. Does anyone know why? I still didn't get an answer. Oh, didn't fall through. Bach and his team doesn't want to fight him right now, or they have a different plan. I forgot about, man, Erickson Lubin. Still only 29. Lubin has time. I like Erickson Lubin. Man, talk about the steam he had coming out. Looking back, his career was managed a bit reckless early on, throwing, I think he was 21, 22, throwing him against Charlo, because Lubin had so much hype coming out the amateurs. Fun style, marketable, ticked every box. It's good to see him back on track per se, but still, is there another guy who had more title eliminator fights than Lubin? How many title eliminator fights has that guy been in? Come on, give that dude a world title shot. I did. No, Kona Walker, Mankey, I haven't. Guys, wherever you are, the stream, we're floating between 30 and 50. Could you like this video right now? That's all I ask. Support the channel any way you can. The tips help. Liking the video helps. The conversation is my favorite, so keep the questions coming. To answer you, Mankey, yeah, I wasn't able to do an uploaded film study on Kona Edwards, but I've film studied it on my own, so you don't have to trust my prediction. I like Kona in that fight. I think in terms of versus Liam, I think it's a good matchup for him. I think he should handle him pretty well. I have him on the money line. The money's pretty good as well. But yeah, so we were having a pretty interesting chat about Errol Spence Jr. and the pros and cons of seeing him fighting one more at 54 and who that would be against. In Sal's blog talk, I brought that up. Josh Kelly versus Bakr Murtazaev at 154. I don't think that's I've seen a lot of comments. People think Murtazaev is just going to handle Kelly. You got to slow your roll on that. Josh Kelly has pop. He could box. He has skills. Fun fighter. He could punch. He's not the same guy who went to Madison Square Garden and fought Ray Robinson. That kid was a kid. That was the guy who was like 14-0 out of the Olympics, hands down, going viral, fun. And Ray Robinson fought him to a draw. And he's also not the same guy who Avenetian walked down and pressured him and game planned him. He big brothered him based off of making Josh fight off the back foot and then wearing him down and then watching Josh fade with his cardio in the fifth, sixth round, stopped him. But Kelly was still in the fight. He was bleeding, but he was getting hit a lot. Since then, he's made adjustments. And these are specific adjustments that I want to see Jahai Tucker make. Meaning, like, Kelly, when he was younger, used to waste a lot of things in the ring. A lot of energy expenditure wasted. He didn't fight like a veteran. He fought like a young kid with a lot of energy, hands down. And he's made a lot of adjustments, and he's fighting really professionally as of late. Granted, Flavio Bea wasn't world class. He starched him. We won money on that. I put a lot of money on the $1.80, and he got him out of there in the first round. And I was watching British boxing commentators saying that Flavio Bea was going to beat Kelly. And I'm like, you guys are insane, dude. What do you see that I don't see? And Kelly could box, guys. And he's tough. And just because he got stopped, he didn't want to be stopped. He has a good mindset, good pedigree. I like Josh Kelly. I'm not saying right now that he's going to beat Murtazaev. We'll wait to see if that fight gets official. But all I'm saying If that fight goes down, keep your eyes on it. I'm really interested in seeing the odds. That's all I'm saying. Because Kelly is not going to fight you on a straight line. He's not Tim Tszyu. He's bigger than that. He's smarter than that. Higher ring IQ. And he has more tools than Tim Tszyu. Dude, Avanesian could box, though. This is the thing, man. Boxing casuals will judge a guy based on they get brought over, they get a big world title fight, and they get knocked out by a world champion. Avanesian gets judged because of the Jaron Ennis and the Terrence Crawford stoppages. But Avanesian could box. Look at the revelry look, all you have to do is when he gets stopped or when any guy gets stopped and the casuals are pouring on him, look at the revelry the fellow boxers give that fighter. Said fighter, Avanesian. Ennis, nothing but always talks high on Avanesian. Same thing with Crawford. Avanesian is a really, really good guy. In his prime now, no. I think he's 35, 36, but dude, the dude's a nightmare. He's a tough matchup. You don't just luckily get a Jaron Ennis fight after you got knocked out against Bud. There was a reason Ennis's handlers wanted to see what he looked like against him. And so my point is that loss, that Joshua Kelly losing to Avanesian it's one loss and he got stopped, but it's not, I don't think it's the narrative that should be circling his career. Yeah, he was even taking the fight to Bud. Exactly. And he's a dog. Dude, I was impressed with, I had heard of Avanesian before the Kelly fight, but he was an underdog in that fight, and Kelly had all the hype. And mate, Avanesian, the game plan was intelligent. He big brothered him, which was super impressive. Casuals pick and choose when they give some. I know, jitterbug. I know. When I start getting on one of these hippie laced rants and blah 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 blah, it's usually towards the casuals, because you know what the problem is, and this is no shade on anybody. It's nobody's fault, but when you see guys or girls with 500,000 subs or 400,000 subs, it's normal for people who aren't in the know to equate somebody's following to their knowledge of whatever we're talking about. There's political commentators with 1 million subscribers, 2 million subscribers, streamers who don't know anything about politics. They're maybe a streamer on Twitch, and then all of a sudden they find themselves talking about politics, and their following thinks that they're an expert on politics. So that's an example. Boxing, the same thing. You can't always equate somebody. I gotta be honest with you. Some of the only boxing commentators I listen to, some of them don't even have 1,000 subs, and I think to them, and I sometimes want to message and be like, don't stop doing this because you got a good boxing mind. They don't know who I am. I just, I've been grinding, I've been really consistent getting over 25,000 subs. It wasn't that long ago. I only had 700. But my point is, there's guys that, some are British, some are American, who know their game, but they maybe they don't know how to do editing, or maybe they don't know how to do the marketing. So their subs, they're getting 100 views. But what they're saying is high level. So you can't always equate somebody's following to their knowledge of the game, and vice versa. So, if you see a guy with 1,000 subs, don't think he doesn't know what he's talking about. There's some gold out there, and I just want to, get that out there. Kelly has been a disappointment. Yeah. So hand history vault, and we then, I'm not disagreeing with you. We then have to say, define disappointment, right? Hand history vault is saying Kelly's career has been a disappointment. We all thought him coming out of the amateurs, guys, he was going viral in boxing for things that at the time, go back to 2016, 2017. At the time, only world champions were going viral for. But he was going viral not necessarily for knockouts, for how he was fighting. Hands down, switch, foot stand, switch, boom, uppercut, boom. It was like the middleweight Lomachenko. What motivated you to live stream more frequently? Mankey crazy. Take this however you want it, but in 2015, to answer your live stream thing, in 2015, I was hosting the #1 podcast in Australia. In 2015, I was running a strength and conditioning gym in Sydney, Australia, where I live, in the city. Now I coach out of my house. But in 2015, I was hosting a podcast called the Vision Board Podcast with a guy named Tristan Cannell. And we were interviewing, in 2015, 2016, Hoist Gracie, Stipe Miocic, Carlos Condit, And then I got into like Boom Boom Mancini, George Foreman, Larry Holmes, Evander Holyfield. I was interviewing all these guys on my podcast in 2015. And then the guy I was co-hosting with only wanted to do boxers and fighters, but I was reaching out to scientists, entrepreneurs. Like I interviewed Gary Vaynerchuk, Grant Cardone, Lewis Howes, guys like that as well. Because my mind, I've always been inquisitive to learn. So I ended up getting an email back from, if you got, this is going to get nerdy real quick, but I'm going to answer your question. There's a group of scientists worldwide, and they're in charge of what they call the doomsday clock. Some of these guys are theoretical physicists. Some of these guys are astrophysicists, and it's their job to meet once a year and predict, use the modern landscape of geopolitics and predict the end of the world. This is a thing that's been going on, I think, since the Cold War. It's called the doomsday clock. Now, one of these scientists is a guy named Lawrence Krauss. You might recognize Lawrence Krauss optically. He wears the big sort of like bucket hat, and he's like a 5'6" guy. He was a teacher at MIT. He's a theoretical physicist. He just does talks now. And he was on that board. So I reached out to him. I was like, dude, I wonder if I could sit shoulder to shoulder with a theoretical physicist. I want to learn from him. I message him. He messages me back and says, hey, Johnny, I'll be in Sydney for the Sydney Writers Festival. Let's do it in person. And at the time, I had only interviewed people via, we were using Skype at the time, or audio phone calls. So like my Evander Holyfield interview, my George Foreman interview, it was on the phone, and we just recorded the audio. Old 2015. So he books in, and I get super nervous. I'm like, oh shit, I'm doing this in person with a rocket scientist? I'm not like, I didn't go to school for any of this. So I reach out to one of my mentors who works for Grant Cardone, and he links me up with Grant Cardone. I get on the phone with Grant. If you don't know who he is, you could, like, or you don't have to be a fan of what he does. He's like an entrepreneur guy. He's a sales expert, but he a big following, kind of culty guy, but he knows what he's talking about regarding business and growing brands. And he tells me, Johnny, to stop being nervous, here's what you do. In the middle of morning rush hour in Sydney, in the city, do Facebook Lives every day for 2 weeks. So sure enough, and you could find these on my coaching page. If you go to Facebook and find Johnny Stofko Coaching, I don't use that page anymore. But for 2 straight weeks, to get out of my comfort zone, I brought my tripod. I went straight to where the train station is, and it's like Sydney CBD, thousands of people walking by, and I just live streamed for 30 minutes just talking about fitness. And so that was always, and it worked really well for me. My following had grown from it. I did the interview with Lawrence Krauss. I ended up writing my first book, and that interview is a chapter in my first book. So 2 months ago on my YouTube, I'm doing my YouTube analytics, and I'm seeing that like my growth was happening it was happening, but slow. And at the time I was only doing shorts and my Stats Done Live videos. And I was like, I need to add something else to the game. What else can I add to this? And so that's where I was like, well, you used to live stream all the time. Start live streaming. So I was live streaming 10 years ago where people were like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And then I stopped. So now I'm doing it again. And it's kind of like a modality that kind of suits my personality. I took class, my grad degree is in leadership and personal development from a program in Las Vegas. So public speaking was one of those things I not only was coached in, but I also used to coach public speaking to corporates. So that's a long-winded answer to your question, why I started live streaming again. Yeah, full circle moment. And, the connectivity, at the time on Facebook, there really wasn't interaction. It was just live streaming and people were watching. Zambikov versus Anglo is going to be a banger. Tomas, I agree. I like Zambikov in that fight. I wish I could get props on that fight, but it's only offering me the money line. Goat, what's your parlay? Goat, I'm asking you guys now. What are your locks of the week? We got Saturday and Sunday coming up. I need somebody's locks. Tell me where to put my money. That's the difference on the channel. I'll tell you, where I'm putting my money, but I listen to you guys too. Let's see. Maybe that's a new feature on the channel. We take, one of you guys give us your lock and we follow it and then we see how they hit. Because I don't mind getting held accountable. I'll tell you when I lose and tell you when I win. But I know some of you guys on the down low are winning, not telling us. Yeah, let's see the locks. I gave you guys mine. I like my 3-leg parlay at UFC. I have a 3-leg. It only pays about 4 or 5 to 1. I have Jamal Hill on the money line. I have the Welsh Gangster, Oban Elliott on the money line, and I have Rafael Fiziev on the money line. So 100 gets you almost 500. But I'm interested where you guys are going. I got about 10 minutes, guys. I'll leave it up for about 10 more minutes. Like this video. Like I said, now we're floating between 50 and 70. We're at 47. So, GOAT, I got Ruiz, Silva, McGrill, Vito Walsh. Easy money. Was that? And GOAT, that's probably going to pay you not quite 1-to-1, not quite plus money, but those are locks. Yeah, we're looking for locks here. I don't see any of those guys losing. And Silva is the, I want to give a shout out. I bet on Usman because Buckley. Nice, good. Mate, I didn't see that one coming good. This is the only one I lost. I went with Buckley. Wait, what are your UFC picks against? I got the ones. Yeah, good. My UFC picks are Oban Elliott money line, Rafael Fiziev money line, and Jamal Hill money line. And guys, if you're not up to date, there's a UFC card in Azerbaijan. So there's going to be a lot of regional guys with a lot of long last names who are really tough. So just keep that in mind. Right now, I got Fiziev and Jamal Hill at even money, and Oban Elliott's the favorite. From your picks, wait, nobody of them losing. Yeah, 10K, yeah. And GOAT, that's the smart money, easy bread. So if you're following GOAT, some of the boys here will throw 10K, 20K, one of my buddies, 30K to win 15K. And when you're looking at locks, looking for locks, if you have the money to do it, that's how you get that steady stream coming. Netflix boxing about to change the game. This isn't supposed to sound controversial. You know what? I'm going to keep my next comment to myself. But I'm not. It was about Netflix. It was about Netflix. My girlfriend and I were watching this Netflix movie like 2 weeks ago. And I'm old school regarding I will rarely ever just watch a movie with having never heard of it. That maybe, I need to open up my personality a bit more. But I'm not the type of guy. Yeah, I like Jamal Hill. I do. And I can give you reasons in a second. I'm not the type of guy to just turn on the TV to watch TV. I don't really watch a lot of TV. So I'm definitely not the type of guy to watch a movie I've never heard of. She's like, let's watch the movie. It's supposed to be about sports. I hate sports, but there's a good storyline. And we put the movie on, and the first 3 minutes are about sports, and then out of nowhere, two dudes start making out. And I go, what the fuck? This was supposed to be about a historical piece about sports on Netflix. Now, all of a sudden, I don't mind if they're making out, but if you didn't tell me they were, and it wasn't marketed as two dudes making it. Anyway, so when I hear Netflix in my head, and I'm not coming at it from a hateful thing. If you know me personally, I use humor a lot. And I was just kind of like, yeah, that ain't, man, you didn't tell me that. Damn, that's all I said. But so when I hear Netflix doing boxing, I'm like, they better not be surprising us. Tomas, there's the picks. Kimura, Yafai, Rodriguez. And every American movie. Yeah, Zach, it's not just America. Diddy inspired sports movie. There we go. Diddy, no Diddy. Okay, so you guys, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. And look, I don't care who you sleep with. I don't care. Why is that my business? I don't judge you at all. But I'm trying to watch boxing. Yeah, same. Yeah, if I'm not watching DAZN boxing, a documentary about the nerd in me, though, guys, that a lot of people who don't know me personally, I'm kind of I'll watch old leaders doing speeches. Yeah, so I just got done watching a documentary on Winston Churchill. This is the guy, the World War I UK sort of leader. And in terms of speaking, that guy was an animal. It's mostly boxing. Yeah, same. Good. We keep things copacetic here. It keeps us safe. But yeah, so when I hear Netflix boxing initially, everyone's like, oh, the streamers, the opportunities, the views, of course. But then in the back of my head, I'm like, uh-oh. Okay, perfect example. The Madison Square Garden card, we're watching boxing, and then all of a sudden, we're seeing commercials with streamers playing video games. I had to text my boy, what are they doing? Dudes playing video games, animation cartoons in between the fights. And I know that, I have to open up my eyes and, the world's changing. But I'm like, these guys aren't boxers. What do I want? If we're going to see in between fights, I want to see an interview with a boxer. I don't want to see a dude playing a video game, animated, explosions, CGI. That's just I'm almost 50 years old. But yeah, there were a lot of in between things in the Madison Square Garden card. You know, the Devin Haney, Teofimo, Ryan Garcia card that no one talked about. That I was like, that I didn't want to see all this. Jordan Levitt, yeah, Jordan Levitt, the monkey god. No, he's not. He's married. The Fatal Fury. They had the box. Yeah, I was like, I don't care about that. And no shade to gamers, but I was raised. You know, I'm not. And I know the only games I ever played, this was in college when we were smoking a lot of green, was Madden. I grew up playing Madden. I grew up playing Tecmo Bowl, Tecmo Bowl on the Nintendo, Madden, NCAA college football, shit. People sleep. NCAA college football on the PS2, like 2001 to 2004, and then also Tiger Woods golf in like 2004. Don't sleep. You could get hammered. We would get a bottle of Henny. We'd get a bunch of other things. And I never even golfed in my life. And we're out here playing Tiger Woods 18-hole golf and doing shots every time. Anyway, I digress. But I'm not, by no means am I a gamer. I'm the type of dude growing up, if my boys wanted to smoke weed, you know, play video games, what that meant to me was they're coming over to my house to smoke weed and play video games. So I'll just smoke a blunt and then I'll watch them play. Yeah, the NCAA college football was my shit, man. And then, you know, NBA Jam for the, I think it was Sega or the PlayStation, 1996. Thoughts on my parlay. Hand history vault. Could you run it by us one more time? We were ranting a bit about video games. Anybody NBA Street or Fight Night, they see, all right, now that's what I'm talking about. That's when games were games. NBA Street was insane. Fight Night 2004, Pass the Sticks. Yep. Next. I got J Hill on the money line, Maurice. Just the money is too good. What I've learned over my time gambling on sports is not to get greedy. So if you like the odds, if you like the value on just either guy, Khalil or Hill, whatever guy you lean on, just take the money line. What's up, bro? Just joined you. Yeah, Rez, I posted him too. Games are insane. Fight Night 2004. I hear Undisputed Game sucks. Yeah, maybe it's because my dad was a goddamn, you know, he wouldn't let me play video games. I like it go over 1.5. Okay. Is it a 5-rounder? It should be main event. Don't get arrested, bet, bro. It does landslide play because good at scroll up. I didn't copy it. Okay. It's all good, hand history. I heard Undisputed is boo-boo. Yeah, so we can't be greedy. Guys, I got a couple minutes before I have to go spar. My last bit of advice is based on when I lose. Don't get greedy. You know, don't add that $7 on a parlay. Because you'll hit a 3-1 dog, you'll parlay that with a 2-1 dog, both underdogs win, and then you put a $7 on it. Caleb Plant versus Resendez, and then you lose. So have standards, have boundaries in terms of if you're going all dogs, don't put a huge favorite on that parlay. And if you're going huge dogs, you know, don't go too heavy. But the worst thing in the world as a gambler is when you have a nice little parlay and the dogs come home and you lose a goddamn 7-1 favorite because you got greedy. Don't get greedy, Maurice. I'm a degenerate. Go back to my live stream yesterday, Maurice, and hear my story about my last hand of blackjack when I was living in Vegas. I'm not going to retell it because it's a bit long-winded. But, yeah. Guys, I'm going to end it here. I'll be back in a couple hours. We got the Long Beach card. I think LA Fight Nights. It's at Thunder Studios in Long Beach. There's some good fights on there. There's money to be made. I got sparring here in about an hour. I'm going to go down to the city of Sydney. I've been sparring these guys for 5-6 years. So it's just work to keep the heart rate up, get rounds in, get loose, get looks, you know, for the love of the game. And I'll be back. So I appreciate all the support. Like this video. Let's get this money.